Okay guys, I wasn't actually preparing to do this part 5, but I realized while I was preparing scans to release on Patreon that I forgot to cover some parts, and I thought that was a good thing to do in this video. So this is what we're being scanning today, a nice pot, and we'll be going through some editing of the inside of the pot, taking the model into 3ds Max, fixing it up, and then taking it back to ZBrush and then back to reality capture. A little bit of tricky, but you can see here these amazing nice details we're getting out of this. So this is a process that I am happy to share with you, so I hope you will like this video. So here I have a pot that I've scanned, and it actually has some issues, and I want to show you how to solve them. I'm doing this over remote, so it is a little bit laggy, but you will just have to bear with me. So you can see here, first of all, this is a high detail scan. So you can see I have 26 million polys here, and just to show you the difference between high detail and normal detail, you can see there is actually some more detail in the scan. It's not a big deal, but there is some detail that you would get in the normal map that you otherwise would miss. Now, bear in mind, doing the normal detail takes like 5 to 10 minutes. Doing the high detail might take you an hour. So it takes a lot longer time to get these details. So usually I don't think it's worth it, but in this case, I wanted to do it. But you can see here, since the way I've scanned it on a little pole, and using my automated photogrammetry scanner, you can see there is some kind of a couple of pieces in the air, and there is a way, an easy way to remove those. So all I have to do is make a selection here of the stuff that you don't want to have, like that. Now I had a selection on the bottom as well, but that doesn't really matter because actually I don't want to keep the bottom either. I can just cut everything out like that. So now I have all this junk inside and also the bottom. Let me actually select that as well. I don't want to have that. Oops. Hold Control to add selections. Hold Shift to remove selections. Something like that. Now you may notice that we actually have some selections up here that I don't want to have, so I will remove those. Hold Shift. And now you have to be a little bit, you got to be a ninja with the angles here to be able to deselect these without deselecting anything inside. You can also tell that the bottom of this pot is actually not all the way down. It is around here, and it should be around here, and that's because I didn't scan all the way down. So, but this is looking good. I have only the selection of the inside, so now I want to remove these, and the easiest way to do that is just to click here, Filter, Selection. Just click that, and it'll make a new model for you without these pieces. So there we go. Now we have a hole. What you could do if you wanna is there's a feature here called close holes. I don't really care about that because I want to do that in ZBrush to have more control, so I just leave it as it is. Also, I have now 26 million polys. If you want to have lower poly count, you have the simplify tool up here. Just click that, and then you can choose here what poly count or triangle count you want to have. In this case, I just want to keep them, so I'll just export this as it is right now. So here we are in ZBrush. And the first thing I want to do, just like before, is to select a model, change the scale to 1. I don't think it matters, but I'll do it anyway just for safety. And new document to get it full screen, and then import our model. Now this will take some time because this model is pretty high density mesh, high resolution, so it'll be a pain to work with because there is no subdivision levels, so it'll be a bit laggy, but it's just when using the original model, so we can live with that. So let's drag this out, hit T for edit, click somewhere on it. You can see how laggy it is. I want to change material. I hate this red one. You can see our nice hole here, which I want to get rid of. So first of all, let's go to Subtool, make a new one. So duplicate that. I'll call this temp because it is. And I want to go to geometry and dynamesh this. You see here, if I set my draw size to about 100, you can still see that the red ring around my cursor, which is, you know, the size of my brush, is still really small, which means that this object is interpreted as really huge. So the resolution in Dynamesh is actually depending on the size of the model. So if I would use the default 128 resolution here, the model will get super high density, probably more than what I'm having right now. So I don't want to have that. I want to have this to the lowest one. Sometimes though, 128 is great because you export the model from Reality Capture and it just comes out in a normal size, and then you can use the default 128. So, but it's easy just to look at the red ring around the cursor to determine that. So here you can see our new remeshed model. I don't want to use this one, but you can also tell that it actually capped the holes. Dynamesh caps all holes, which is kind of it, but we really don't need that because I'm going to make my own new hole. So go to ZBrush, and right now I don't really care about polygroups or, you know, adding, you know, support lines or anything, because I will remesh this once again in a little bit. So here we have a remeshed one with nice poly loops. So the best thing to, because you can see here now, this is the bottom of the pot, but the bottom should be up here, and now it's around in the middle of the pot. So I want to move the bottom up here, and the easiest way to do that, according to me, is in 3ds Max. So I just want to export this now into, I'm just going to call it 2 Max, right? And now I'll go into 3ds Max, and I can import the model 2 Max. And I want to pay attention, object scale should be to 1, otherwise it'll be wrong scale when you import it into ZBrush again. And I want to import. Also, another thing you want to pay attention to here is that you don't want to move the object around, because you want to make sure that when you import it back into ZBrush, it'll come into the same place as it was before. So now I'm just gonna convert this into a edit poly, ring that selection, remove the inside, and I want to go here just to make a new bottom around there. Could be nice. And I won't care as much about the topology here because I am going to remesh it. The one thing I do want to do though is I don't just want to cap this, because that'll be one poly with no edges. So ZBrush will create its own edges here, which will not work very good. So what I want to do is to drag it down like this. I will remesh this again, so probably it doesn't actually matter too much, but I just want to do this to be safe. And if I go up to here, modify selection, and click this one, I'll get every second line. And now I think it's just easier to do this way instead of manually selecting all lines. Now we have every second line, and just hold Control backspace to remove them, and now we have quads in here. As I said, I don't really think this matters much, but I like to do it anyway, just to make sure that we're not having any troubles. So, export again. Export to from Max, I suppose, with a lot of excess. And ZBrush, scale 1, export, and then we can go back to ZBrush. I don't want to import this into this model, because then it'll actually replace the geometry, and I don't want that. So what I want to do is to hit a new mesh here, just the star, and then import, and then from Max, open, and now we have this one, right? Now I can go back to this one, the old one here, and I can delete this temp here because I don't need it. And now to get the new imported model into this model here as a subtool, I have to click append. So I click append, and then from Max, and now you can see that we have the new model with our new bottom. Now I do want to ZBrush this, and to make sure that we have all the, let's actually ZBrush it now once first, because I just want to see what it looks like in here. That looks good. Okay, so I want to have different UV islands here. So the easiest way to do that is to click ZBrush. Actually, I don't think I have to. Now, what I think you can do here is, like I showed you in the previous video, hold space, polygroup, and click an edge here, and we can do, oops, some new poly loops here, which is now currently working perfectly, but it doesn't work that perfectly all the time. Sometimes instead of getting perfect loops, you'll get a spiral. So once you click one here, you would actually get the whole object. So I'll show you how to fix that the easiest way. So what I like to do is to click this one and select ZBrush guides and draw some new guides around here. And you have a tool up here called, if you go to stroke and then lazy mouse, you can enable this, and this will help you to just make smoother lines. You can see you get this little line here to help you smooth the line out. So I just want to have one line around here. Make sure that they're closing. I want to have one line at the bottom. I'll be a bit sloppy right now because I won't actually use this. But I want to show you anyway that you can do it if you need to. If you go into ZBrush, you have this curve strength. This tells ZBrush how much to rely on these remeasure guides. So if I take it to like between 50 to 99%, it'll use these as guides, but it'll still make its own decisions. However, if you go to curve strength 100 and click ZBrush, it'll follow these lines perfectly, and also it'll divide these objects up, or these pieces up, into its individual polygroups. So that is really useful when the automatic ZBrush doesn't work as you wish it did. However, now it actually did work perfectly, so I will, instead of doing it this way, I'll just use the Z modeler and I will divide these up manually because it's just easier to make sure that they're following the creases perfectly. Now I have perfect circles instead of this wobbly line that I made before. So hold Control Shift, click this one to hide the others, and then go to polygroups and autogroups. And just like in the previous video, sorry, I'm really going a bit fast right here, I know, but I've already shown you this, so I don't have to explain everything in detail. So I will autogroup that as well again, and then I will autogroup actually, I think this, yeah, I want to autogroup these two into the same group. So this is looking great. Right, awesome. So now also what I want to do actually is to make a selection here, and I want to group masks because I want to divide these up into two halves. Like this. And the same thing for this one. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. As I said before, I don't want to unwrap this now because I want to project all the details from the previous model into this one first. So I want to subdivide this into the same resolution as before or higher. So I have to go to subdivision 7. And now I want to remesh, or I mean project all the details back from the old one. Here I actually think I might have to increase the distance. So I'll do that just a little bit. Because we had some, you know, bumps and stuff, like, I don't know what it's called. Anyway, this will take some time. So you can see here now, we got projected all the details down to this hole, and then everything behind here has no details, but that's because, you know, it's a hole. That detail didn't exist. But anyway, this is looking fabulous. You know, all these details, wow, I love it. So what I want to do now is to do the same as before. And now when we have projected everything, we can copy the, we can make a UV mapping. So let's go to geometry and just see what we have down here. I can delete the lower stuff there, and I want to make a copy of this now. duplicate, and I want to do the UVs on that one, so I'll have to go to geometry, and as before, delete everything that is higher. And then Z plugin, drag it out here, UV master, make sure you have polygroup selected, unwrap, and then flatten. And now this is why I divided these sides up to 2 different halves, because it's just easier to just make things work, I think, here in, oh Jesus, in the unwrap, or to place these out. They are still bent, so it's a little bit tricky, but I think we can make something good out of this. Just trying to figure out like how we can maximize this. Also, I want to see which ones are the outside. So the blue and the red are the outsides. So the outsides are the ones I want to have bigger. And this one is the inside bottom, which would probably be never visible, so I don't have to care about keeping that one large. Maybe I shouldn't have split these up into 2, actually. You know, let's redo that. Oops, polygroups. And auto group these 2. And unwrap it. Flatten. I actually think this is easier. Just make sure here, so the red and green are the outsides. I won't get this perfect. This will be good enough. Okay, so I'm not utilizing the whole space right now, which I really should do. But maybe I can do it like this. And if I rotate these like that, then I can free up some space to make this bigger. This is indeed tricky, my friends. Anyway, let's go with that. So unflatten. Now copy UVs. I want to copy them into this one. So here we can paste UVs. And now we can delete this one again. Yep. All right. So I'm happy with this. Now, do I need to export a higher density mesh, or will this be just fine? 78. Tricky. Actually, I will export it with a little higher density in the base mesh, so I'll leave it there. Now we have a problem, and that's this edge, and the only real good solution we can do to that is to smooth it out. And we will be losing details inside of the pot, and there's literally nothing we can do about that, actually, because the detail just doesn't exist. You can paint in your own details if you want to. Shit. Okay, one thing you have to pay attention to is that when you, by default, when you are smoothing things, you're actually smoothing the back sides also. So you can go into here, go to auto masking and back face mask. However, that only applies to the current tool. The current tool right now is the normal standard brush. I had to hold shift to enable the smooth brush, and then I can enable it, because you see now when I stop pressing shift, it's not enabled. It'll be enabled only to the smooth brush. Just keep that in mind. So now I'm not smoothing the outside. Normally I actually would scan down in the bottom of the pot as well, so that I wouldn't miss all these details. Anyway, this is good. You will never look down there. So this is awesome, and let's just do the same procedure as usual. UV map. Make it as big as possible. Displace. Create displace. Nope. Create normal map. Background sounds. Clone. Go in here, texture, export, normal map. JPEG will be just fine. And hit OK. Now I want to export this as low poly. And then I want to go to the high poly and export that too. Now remember, this is half of the poly, so I have right now 20 million active points, which will be 40 million polys once I'm done, which means that reality capture will hate me, but that's okay. So export, and now I want to replace the first export from reality capture so I can import it again. So I actually undid everything here, and because I noticed that I had accidentally like smoothed out like a circle around here, so I redid it. Also, I didn't export the highest one. I did export the subdiv 4 out of 5 because it took like 40 minutes to export that, and it's just not worth it for getting some possibly greater sharpness in the texture. So I am happy with this. So now I will go back to reality capture, which we've got here. And when I import this one, open, and this might take a while, and it only took a few seconds. So if we take a look at this now, yeah, this is the right model. So just like before, make a texture. I want to make sure that we have 16K here. Yep. So make a texture. Now this will take a while. So it's done. We've got the texture, and damn, this is laggy. You can see right here, looks like shit, but we can fix that. So I want to export, and you know, I can export that over the same one again, probably, because I only want a texture anyway. I don't want to export the texture layer 1. All right. So just as before, flip vertical, save, yes. This one too, flip vertical, save. Let's open this. And look at that. This is looking pretty darn good. Still a little bit blurry. I'll just do like before. Add some filters, sharpen, unsharp mask. Looks great. So we want to fix these textures here. So I guess what we can do really is just to, you know, because you will never see down inside the pot anyway. So why even bother being picky about it? And then darken it a little bit. Like so. And this should be just fine. Albedo. Low poly. Now you'll see that every polygroup from ZBrush would actually come into 3ds Max as its own individual object. So what you want to do is to merge these together. So I just click border, Control A, Control Vertex, weld with like 0.01, and now they're all welded perfectly. Whoops. Scale looks to be pretty accurate actually, so all right. Already now, without any displacement, it actually looks pretty good. So let's try with 0.1 just to see what we've got. Actually, I also want to take a copy of this as instance. Pivot to bottom and move it to 0. So definitely have the displacement higher. Yes, look at that. That is starting to look good. Maybe even higher. These details here, they look great. Maybe even higher. Now we are talking. Oh yes. So this looks a bit soft still, but we can fix that by just adding the... We can try the normal first, but I don't think I want to use it. Kind of add some nice detail. You know what we can do? We can make a mix here. So we mix the normal with the diffuse. And when I move this down, the diffuse will come in a little bit. Getting this close, obviously it won't look very good, but you will never get this close in real life. If you can make it look good from here, that is way more than enough. And you definitely can. So now let's add this diffuse to a color correction, just to be proactive. then into the diffuse slot. I want to have gamma 1.5 because I just think that looks more accurate to the real one. Oh my god, all the cars! What are they doing here? And then maybe some reflection. Maybe adding this to the reflection slot. Doesn't actually do much, but a little maybe. You know, I think we're good on this one. So nice details here. Oops. This is fabulous. Let's try to increase the resolution. 2048. If it holds up for this, it's definitely a success. It kind of does. I mean, you would extremely rarely have a reason to go this close to a pot. I mean, why would you? So, having this looking good here, we have definitely succeeded with doing an awesome scan. So that's it, folks. Thank you for tuning in.